Think about this past summer. Now, think about a summer from when you were 7. One of them lasted forever. The other disappeared in a blink. Most people blame being busy, responsibilities, days melting together into a blur. But neuroscience has a different explanation. As you age, something inside your brain is physically changing the way you experience time. Today, we're tracing it from a century-old observation all the way to a brand new neuroscience discovery. Some of it is math, some of it is physics, all of it is real. And by the end, you'll know the one thing you can do that can actually slow time back down. At any age. In 1897, a French philosopher named Paul Janet identified something measurable. A year doesn't feel the same length at every age, because proportionally, it isn't. To a 5-year-old, 1 year is 20% of their entire life. Everything they've ever known fits inside those 5 years. At 35, those same 12 months are less than 3% of your life. By 50, it's 2%. Entire decades start slipping past before you notice they're gone. At 65, a single year is a fraction of a percent, a microscopic sliver of everything that came before it. Every year you're alive, that fraction shrinks, and your brain experiences that shrinking as speed. That's why a year at 7 felt infinite, and a year at 50 disappears into a blur of recurring seasons. Janet's math still holds up, over a century later. But it doesn't explain everything, because time doesn't just feel shorter as you age. It feels different, blurrier, out of focus. And that has nothing to do with math. It has to do with how your brain actually records your memories. In 2019, an engineering professor at Duke named Adrian Bayin proposed something strange. Your brain, he said, works like a camera. Every conscious moment is a snapshot, and your brain stitches thousands of these snapshots together into what feels like continuous time. When you're young, that camera runs fast, taking thousands of frames per second. Play it back later, and every single detail can be easily recalled. But as you age, Bayin argued, that camera slows down. Here's why. Your neural network doesn't stay the same size. As you age, it keeps growing. More connections, more pathways, more distance for a signal to travel. And those pathways accumulate microscopic wear and tear, cellular fatigue, oxidative stress, and the gradual breakdown of myelin sheaths decade after decade, which causes more resistance and slower signals. The result isn't fewer memories. It's fewer frames. Bayin put it simply. People are amazed at how much they remember from childhood days that felt endless. It's not that those days meant more. It's that they were being filmed in rapid fire, so there are more frames to recall as memories. As we age, there are fewer total snapshots captured over the same 12 months. But in 2025, something showed up on a brain scan that Bayin's camera theory alone couldn't explain. In 2025, a team of neuroscientists set out to catch that blur in the act, not in theory, on a scan. 577 people climbed into an MRI scanner and watched an 8-minute movie. Researchers weren't tracking what they remembered. They were tracking how the brain parses a continuous feed into distinct chapters, the exact millisecond the brain shifts from one chapter of the experience to the next. Because your brain doesn't experience life as one unbroken stream. It chops it into pieces, a cut in the scene, a shift in conversation, a transition from one moment to the next. Neuroscientists call these neural states. And every time your brain transitions from one state to the next, that shift acts as an internal timestamp. More timestamps, more moments captured in memory. Fewer timestamps, fewer moments captured. Here's what they found. In older brains, those neural states stretch longer and longer, especially in the regions that handle vision and memory. Same 8-minute movie. Fewer timestamps, less of it actually recorded. The researchers tracked what happens when neural dedifferentiation sets in, when regions of the brain that once fired sharp and distinct signals start blurring together. A face, a place, a brand new scene, all filed as one indistinct block. The data showed a literal blurring of time. So is that it? Is your brain just fading away one blurred moment at a time? Not quite. Once you understand how your brain is actually sorting these memories, you can start manipulating how you experience time. At any age. Because your brain isn't decaying, it's economizing. When you have a brand new experience, your brain records it in extraordinary detail. Every texture, every sound, every emotion gets full attention. But once you've done something 100 times, repetition suppression kicks in. Your brain stops recording each moment in vivid detail. It stores a faint trace instead of a full take, and shuts down the neural chatter for a scene it's already mastered. That's not decay. That's your brain conserving energy. And your brain has a specific chemical it uses to decide what's worth that energy. Dopamine. Beyond reward, your brain's dopamine hubs act as a novelty detector. Something unexpected happens, dopamine surges through the ventral tegmental area, and it works like a highlighter, telling your hippocampus to capture the moment in high definition. But when a routine sets in, those chemical spikes flatten out. Here's the problem. Baseline dopamine output naturally starts declining as you move throughout adulthood, right as your life fills up with routine. Same commute, same rooms, same conversations, on repeat. Time doesn't speed up because your brain is aging. It's just running out of new memories to record. Which means you're not just watching the blur happen, you're building it. Every repeated day is one more day your brain barely captures in memory. And that means there's a lever, not to add hours to your life, but to add frames back into the time you already have. So what actually pulls more frames back into your memories? Not a supplement, not a hack. It's by creating novelty, on purpose. Scientists studying this effect keep landing on the same answer. Do something your brain has never filed as a memory before. Not a vacation, not a life overhaul. Something as small as a new route home, a new dish, a conversation with a stranger instead of mindlessly scrolling on your phone. Anything your neural network hasn't already built a shortcut for. Because a shortcut is exactly what familiarity is, and a shortcut is the one thing your brain refuses to spend energy capturing. None of this adds a second to the clock on your wall. That part doesn't change. What changes is how much of it your brain actually keeps. One of the researchers behind the 2025 study put it plainly. Novelty is what makes time feel expansive again, at least in hindsight. Nobody's claiming this reverses aging, or that it's the whole story. As neuroscientists note, subjective time perception is a multi-factor puzzle. Part mathematical compression, part neural signal processing, and part frame rate reduction. When your brain's predictive coding kicks in, it stops rendering the familiar, effectively filming a lower percentage of your waking life to conserve metabolic energy. You aren't actually buying more clock time. You're just increasing the shutter speed on the camera. But novelty is the one control dial you actually get to touch. The simple way to force the lens back open and make time feel like it's slowing down again. Here's what's actually happening to you. Your life isn't speeding up. It's just become so repetitive that your brain doesn't record memories in the same vivid detail it did when you were younger. The same route you walk the dog every single night, unrecorded. The bedtime story you read your kids without registering a word of it, unrecorded. The I love you say on your way out the door, on autopilot, unrecorded. When most of your days are just a carbon copy of one another, the days, months, and years seem to blend together and quietly slip away, faster and faster. Not because they lasted less time, but because your brain stops marking new chapters, with fewer and fewer dopamine spikes to flag which moments are worth a snapshot. Go back to that childhood summer. It didn't feel long because you were young. It felt long because you didn't know what was coming next. Every moment was a new experience. Every day shot in full, because your brain still hadn't created a shortcut for it yet. Nothing about that camera stopped working. It's just waiting for you to give it something worth recording. Take the same road tomorrow, and this year folds down into a handful of memories you can't tell apart. Take a different one, just once, and it gets filed away in full. Timestamped. In HD forever. Your camera is still rolling. Whether it's actually recording anything is up to you. If you enjoy taking deep dives into how your body really works, make sure you're subscribed to Body Science so you never miss another trip down the rabbit hole.